Hello and welcome to the TriPhysio YouTube channel. This is my first video out of a 10 video lockdown series where I'm going to be discussing the implications of lockdown on your injury risk. In South Africa, we were in a 5-week lockdown where we were not able to exercise outside of our property. When level 4 and level 3 started, we were able to exercise between 6 in the morning and 6 in the evening. This is why I'm going to be talking about loading. Loading refers to training and how much of it you do or how little of it you do. Everyone is overeager to get back on the road, get running, get riding after being stuck indoors for at least 5 weeks. So I want to leave you with 4 simple tips to help you avoid getting injured as you get back on the road. So we all know that no training results in an unprepared athlete, whereas overtraining results in an injured athlete. We look at training blocks in 4-week windows. A chronic workload, as we call it, looks at the entire 4-week window. The acute workload looks at now, this week. An easy way to remember it is that chronic generally refers to long term or something that's been going on for a long time, whereas acute refers to what's going on now. So when we talk about high chronic workloads or high acute workloads, there is a difference. High chronic workloads produce a fit and durable athlete. This comes from a consistent 3 to 4 week of solid training, where acute high workload comes from not having been prepared for the workload you are doing this week. So, for example, if you've done nothing for the last 3 weeks and then decide this week that you're going to go and run 2 marathons, that would be considered as a high acute workload. Triathletes will be familiar with the term tapering, and this is where workloads come into use. If an athlete has been working consistently and working hard for the last 3 to 4 weeks, or even further, 10 weeks to 12 weeks, they will be strong, they'll be fit, and they'll be at their lowest risk for injury. In the last week before a race, they will drop all their training, which means that they're not fatigued and there's not a high risk of injury. How this applies to lockdown is that there has been a substantial decrease in exercise and a general increase in a sedentary lifestyle. Research tells us that high chronic levels result in really fit, durable athletes. So if we look at the situation now, we've all been lazy, lying on couches. Some of us may be doing more than others, but most of us are at our highest injury risk right now, which is why I want to leave you with 4 tips that are going to really help you to prevent injury. First tip I'm going to give you is that you want to very gradually increase your workload. Generally, this means that you want to increase only by 10% a week. The different variables we work with are speed, frequency, or distance. I find the easiest one to work with is distance. So for example, if you do 20 kilometers of running in a week, you know that next week you need to do 10% more. So 10% of 20 kilometers would be 2 kilometers. So next week, you'll be running 22 kilometers. And you would therefore need to work this out with swimming and with cycling. So let's look at lockdown as a detraining period. Some of you may have been doing minimal work during lockdown. You took the opportunity to really relax, laze on that couch, get up late. You're completely unfit and completely unconditioned as a result. Others may have tried to keep fit and to keep conditioned. You may have done a little bit of strength work. You might have had a treadmill or an indoor trainer. So you would have had a degree of movement and a degree of moving and using your body. So we need to ask ourselves, if high chronic workloads protect against injury, then in other words, lockdown, which we see as a detraining period, is an instigator of injury, which means that right now, where you've just come out of lockdown, you are at your maximal peak for getting injured. You also need to look at something we call a microcycle. A microcycle takes the bigger picture of training and reduces it right down to really focus in on 1 week. So what training sessions do you have planned out for 1 week? For example, if you did nothing on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you ran a marathon on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, you did nothing, that would be a very poorly planned microcycle. And within that point where you did your marathon, you will be completely spiking your load and overloading your body, which would probably result in injury. You need to learn to be consistent with your week, plan your training sessions, and make sure that your body is able to adapt to the load that you are putting on it. Don't be sporadic, spiking here and then resting for a week and spiking there. Consistency. This leads me to my second tip, which is know where you've come from, know where you are now, and know where you're going. If you like South Africa and you came out of a complete 5-week lockdown where you were not able to exercise out of your property, most of you will be very deconditioned and very unfit and at your maximal risk of injury. So that's where you are now. You're now able to get back on the road and get training, but with a very large risk of injury. But if you know where you're going, so for example, at the moment, anywhere in the world, there are not a lot of races and events that are being planned as a result of COVID-19. Let's say you have a 3-month period before your next race that you're able to plan towards. Don't rush back into the first week and try and get fit now in this first week, because then you are going to get injured. Pace yourself over 12 weeks. Try and break everything up equally into weeks. Make sure that within 1 week, you're not spiking your workload too much. You're consistent with a run on Monday, a run on Wednesday, a run on Friday, your long run on the weekend, for example, and the same with your swimming and your cycling. Don't come out hot off the starting blocks now, coming out of lockdown, you will get injured. Let's face it, triathletes are perfectionists. If we get given a training program, we want to stick to every single detail of it. If we miss one session because we were actually so tired we couldn't get out of bed in the morning, we beat ourselves up about it. We need to be aware that coming out of lockdown, our injury risk is soaring sky high. Now is not the time to be a perfectionist. During lockdown, we wouldn't have had the stress of work, we wouldn't have been exercising nearly as much, we would have been able to sleep a lot more than we usually do. Generally, the overall holistic stress on our bodies during lockdown would have been very low. Those of us coming out of lockdown now are going back to work, we have the opportunity to exercise again, and we're probably getting less sleep because we get to see our friends, we're waking up early to train, we have the added stress of work, so we're getting a lot less sleep. Do you know that research says that those who sleep less than 8 hours a night are 1.7 times greater at risk than those who sleep for 8 hours or more a night? Therefore, this leads me to my next tip, is control the factors you can. If you can try and get more sleep at least, it will really help you in preventing injury. It just gives your body that much more rest and recovery. We can't control the fact that we're going back to work. We know exercise is good for us and we're dying to get back on the road. We want to see our friends, but let's just be clever while we start loading carefully again. Try and get at least 8 hours of sleep as consistently as you can. Factors such as age, previous injury, and genetics all play a role in injury prediction. Older people, for example, have less capacity to tolerate sudden increases in load. The repair of injured tissue in elderly people is also a lot more delayed than those in younger people. Those who are genetically gifted with mobile joints, good technique, strength, good biomechanics, they're aerobically fit, they also may better tolerate sudden increases in load. Therefore, not all of us are the same. There's not one single recipe that you can apply to each individual. The guidelines I've given above are not codes. They are just very simple guidelines that are there to try and help you along your way in not getting injured. My last tip to you today is, if you're still in lockdown, keep moving. The more you move and use your body, the less of a shock it's going to go into when you come out of lockdown and you're able to start exercising again. Whether it's simple mobility drills, foam rolling, a few strength exercises, maybe you're lucky enough to have a treadmill or an indoor bicycle trainer at home. Do what you can to keep yourself moving. It really will help your body to ease back into exercise as soon as you get the opportunity. I hope these tips I've given you today have been of some practical use to you. Be sure to join us in our next video where we discuss various strengthening techniques specific to triathletes. These drills are designed to be home-based, so they're cheap, they're time efficient, they don't require much equipment, and they really will help you to get an idea of what's needed from a strength perspective for triathletes. Let me know in the comment section below if any of these tips really resound with you. Have you had any experience with any of them? Which one have you found works best for you? I would love to hear from you. If you've liked this video, don't forget to hit the like button. And if it's the first time you're watching, consider subscribing to our channel. It's been lovely to be with you. See you in the next video.